Welcome to the podcast, Your Future in Sales and Marketing, the podcast that helps you make great career decisions. My name is Mike Dickson and I'm a professional sales and marketing recruiter. I love what I do, but my biggest frustration is seeing too many people not realizing their career potential. In this podcast, I'll introduce you to my network, an amazing group of business leaders from the biggest tier 1 organizations through to some super fast growth SMEs. They'll share their career journey and give unique advice and insights on managing your career and leading a function and a business. Join me, Mike Dickson of AXR Recruitment and Search to help guide your future in sales and marketing. Well, hello and welcome to Your Future in Sales and Marketing, the podcast that helps you make a great career decision. My name is Mike Dickson. I lead the AXR Sales and Marketing Recruitment practice, and we've been running this podcast now for 3 years. If you're a regular listener, I think this is probably episode number 59 or 60. And I'm delighted to be joined today by a new colleague to the AXR team, Andrew Cannock. Andrew, how are you today?
Good, Mike. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
I'm delighted that you're on. The second guest of the year, I think we had a session came out a few weeks ago with Greg Madden, talking all about a whole bunch of things on career management and getting yourself ready for interview. Today is going to be a prediction on what we think is happening in 2023, particularly with relevance to the FMCG consumer markets that we're in within sales, marketing category. What do we learn from 2022? What do we think is going to happen in 2023? And how can you position yourself to get the most out of it, whether that's staying where you are and having a great career conversation with your current organization, or if you're thinking of making a move, is this the year to do it? So before we jump in, you've probably heard me talk often about my background, but Andrew, give us the listeners and our networks and FMCG a bit of insight into you. Where have you come from before recruitment?
Thanks, Mike. So yeah, I'm very new to the AXR business, as you touched on. So I'm the beginning of week 5 here. So head is suitably spinning, as it always is in a new role. But yeah, so my background is not one of recruitment at all, actually. My background is all sales and category roles within FMCG. So I spent most of my career to date with Twinings, terribly English thing to be doing. And started out with them in an account management role within sort of regional sales, moved up into national account management, and then made the move over to Australia with them just over sort of 6 years ago. Recently got my Australian citizenship, which is very exciting, officially part of the team.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I've always been interested in the sort of people side of things more than anything. So moved out of a category management role into an internal recruitment role with George Weston Foods, who are part of the same global business that own Twinings. And from there, then found myself in agency recruitment with AXR. So new to the recruitment side of things, but recruiting in an area that I know and love, which is predominantly sales and category within FMCG. And yeah, learning the ropes, but really enjoying it so far.
Fantastic. Well, for those of you in the national account management space or category space, that's the areas Andrew's going to be recruiting in. Along with a couple of new colleagues as well, we've also brought Jennifer Fogarty into the business. For those of you who don't know Jen, she's come from a mixture of agency and in-house background, but knows the FMCG sales marketing category space very well. Carmen Lung has also joined. And Carmen has joined us from a background in Uber and prior to that in management consulting with Accenture. So we've got a really strong team adding to the team we already have here, which you know and love. But enough about us. We'll come back to some of the ways that we can help our listeners and our networks get the most out of 2023. But let's look at the year that was and what we thought and saw went on in 2022. Now, Andrew, you've got a pretty fresh perspective, new to recruitment, but certainly part of the Australian scene with an FMCG for the last number of years. But when you look back on the year that was, what do you think's going on in 2022 at macro level that might kind of then spill into this year as well?
I think 2022 could definitely be described as a year with unprecedented circumstances. We're all used to that word unprecedented after the last few years. And I think from a labour market perspective, it was really no different. So at a sort of macro level, we had fairly strong economic recovery from COVID going on within Australia, coupled with really low immigration, which kind of conspired to create a huge labour shortage. So what we saw was record low unemployment rate, super high participation rate, and created what could really be described as a hot market, I suppose, from a candidate perspective. I spent most of last year in an internal recruitment role, and we saw our average number of applications per role drop from 20 down to less than 10, sometimes less than 5 in some cases. So a very short candidate market definitely put the power in the candidates' hands, I think. I actually went back and listened to the podcast you did with Callum and Chris Hamill in sort of July last year, when really at the peak of that hot market, just to do a bit of preparation for today, and how times have changed since then. So we also saw a lot of people looking to sort of change jobs, change careers, or even take career breaks. There was a lot of reevaluation of where people were at career-wise after COVID. And also businesses really looking to rapidly figure out what their flexible working policies were. A whole new world after COVID. People have been used to working at home in their pajamas for the best part of 2 years, and suddenly businesses were trying to figure out, how do we manage this transition back to the office, which was difficult for a lot of them. So there was a lot going on last year. Some good and some not so great, depending on your perspective. But tumultuous times.
Really is. It's funny being in a city, as our office, for those of you who've been to see us, is on Clarence Street above Wynyard Station. A great spot for Barangaroo and actually a lot around Wynyard as well. But the number of people in the city this year, this side of Christmas or January, even before Australia Day, has been exceptional. I felt the city was coming back to life in the second half of 2022. But this last week or two has been ridiculous. Queues out the door for cafes, hard to get a restaurant booking, really, really busy any day of the week. And I love it. It's great. The buzz is fantastic. The transport and the traffic is perhaps the downside of that, but it's nice to be in a city again. And I do wonder for a lot of people whether that's people coming back to work for the first time or just increasing their frequency. I suspect the latter. I don't think anyone's been sat at home completely for the last year, but certainly the frequency of coming into an office has changed. And I would say the conversations we're having with candidates have evolved as well. Certainly, if you look at the kind of questions we get asked on what's important in a culture, and we talk always about you join a business, not a job. So let's unpick how that business shows up and presents itself. Has it got a good mission and a journey? But how does it bring it to life in terms of how it interacts with its people? And flexibility is part of that. But I've noticed those conversations changing, and actually people seeking to be in the office more than out. And that's been a real difference.
It has. And, you and I went to go meet with one of our clients recently in the beautiful new Key Quarter building. You go back to the height of COVID, and you would have thought that was a foolish venture to be launching a building like that, given all the predictions around people wanting to kind of work from home forever. But we've actually seen quite the opposite. There's a real appetite now to get back into the office and back into the swing of things. Yeah,
and I think we were so impressed with the building, we actually took a tour and asked the concierge to show us around, and he was saying that occupancy was up to 80%, and that's only because they hadn't opened another 20%, which is extraordinary. That must be the most premium, expensive office building in Sydney. But good to see, and interesting too, just a conversation with the candidates. A number of candidates have said to us, actually, 1 or 2 days a week in the office isn't enough for me. I want more. I want to be around people. I've learned that I'm more productive with people. My creativity increases, my productivity increases. The balance for me is actually more in the office rather than less. Whereas perhaps 12 months ago, it was all about less in the office is better. I think for now it's getting the balance right. Where do you think we'll land?
I think balance is the key word. I think from most businesses that we're dealing with at the moment, on average, sort of 3 days a week in the office is sort of the expectation. But there are some outliers to that. I think from a candidate perspective, I'm still speaking with a few candidates who they want to spend most of their time working from home, and if that's what suits them and their life and ultimately serves their career, then great. But I think they'll find themselves increasingly in a minority, as most people do want to spend a bit more time in the office. I think for those younger candidates who are kind of just entering the workforce or have done in the last couple of years, that time in office is crucial to their development, because so much of what you learn is through osmosis and being around people. So yeah, definitely. And words of wisdom to anyone who's kind of early in their career: spending that time in the office is going to be invaluable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the first point you made is quite valuable as well. On if you set up your life in such a way with your current employer that means you don't have to be in the office at all or very little, and you feel it's time for the next phase in your career, and you want to leave your current employer and do something else, then I suspect you're really narrowing your options in terms of where you could go, and therefore you're compromising career perhaps more significantly than you realize. So don't lead unless you have to, with the view that it's all about your ability to work from home. It's your ability to actually get the most out of your career and your capabilities. So don't let yourself down. I accept that at different stages of life, being in and around home is incredibly useful, and you can be productive, but at the same time, I think just in a practical sense as a recruiter, if your brief to us is only work in an organization that lets me be at home the whole time, then we're going to have very few opportunities for you.
Yeah, I think as with everything, we'd encourage candidates to take a long-term view. So that ultimate flexibility and being at home most of the time might be great, given your current circumstances or, over the next couple of years. But yeah, just thinking through the longer term implications of that is crucial.
Yeah, it is. Now we've jumped into one of our topics there, which has been really interesting, the whole flexibility piece, which is a big part of a lot of everyone's thinking and conversations. It is a fast moving trend. But what else, when we look at 2023, do we think is going to happen, Andrew? What's going to shape this year for us as recruiters, and therefore also for the people who are connected to us, future leaders and current leaders alike?
Yeah, I think from a sort of macro level, again, it's the outlook is uncertain. We're continuing to see financial pressure, another interest rate rise going through, I think, today. Inflation only going one direction. I guess from our perspective, though, in the markets that we work in within FMCG consumer goods, consumer spending remains pretty strong and tends to be fairly recession-proof. If you look at, consumers cutting back their spending, tends to be on the more big ticket items, holidays, going out to eat, but they'll continue to sort of treat themselves at home, which means that FMCG brands will continue to innovate against that, and continue to sort of grow their teams and bring on capability. So I think from our perspective as recruiters, we're probably expecting another pretty busy year.
Yeah. Do you think anything's going to change? Because you look at some of the economic forecasts, I think, level of household savings is starting to depreciate. Interest rates are going up. Will we see the same economic stresses that other countries, such as in Europe or the US, are experiencing, or is Australia just a lucky country?
It always historically has been, hasn't it? And I think we'll continue to see that to an extent. I mean, we're geographically removed from Europe, which means the impacts of things like the war in Ukraine, for example, yeah, we feel them, but probably not to the same extent that those in Europe and arguably the US might. So yeah, although you can look at those worldwide trends and expect them to come here to an extent, I don't think we'll feel them quite as strongly.
Yeah. Who can tell? The only thing you can predict is that an economist will never be 100% accurate, and they all have different views. So it is hard to tell what's going to happen. But I think we do have an interesting finger in the pulse, because we talk to so many people every day, whether that's junior, mid, senior careers, those people are running functions or organizations, or at the receiving end of strategies to execute. We do get a sense of a changing of the pulse in terms of confidence. And at the moment, I would say that there's been no real significant shift. Now, in recruitment circles, there's a lot of talk, and the advisory groups that are around the recession that's going to calm the big downturn in the market. I think it will ebb and flow. I think it will. Recruitment never stands still. But in our markets, yeah, to your point, FMCG consumer demand will always remain reasonably stable. Just the patterns of purchase might change, but I think it's a very interesting space to be in. If I look forward, and I think about what's happening this year from roles and the practicalities of the areas we specialize in, I think we will see a bit of a shift. But one of the ways to look at it is if we look at demand for talent last year and how we've started this year, let's kind of get a sense of what the differences are. Because my experience was last year, the demand for our services in AXR as specialists in sales, marketing, and category and all the spaces in between was for the mid-level roles. So national account manager roles, for senior brand manager roles, for category manager roles, and not much shifting either up or down from that space. If we look forward at next year and the roles that we think are going to be in demand, do we think there'll be any significant change from 2022?
I wouldn't think so. I think we'll continue to see movement in that sort of that middle part of the market. Those skill sets are increasingly in demand from businesses. Where we might see a little bit of movement is more at the senior end. Mike, I know you've already said beginning of this year you've started to see a bit more movement at a more senior level within sales and category, and that might create even further movement at the mid level because we might see people making that step up into more senior roles. So really, that middle part of the market is going to continue to remain pretty hot.
Yeah, agreed. I think the mid market is hot because it's where companies get the best return. You're getting somebody who doesn't need a lot of training, and somebody whose return on investment, because they're where the rubber hits the road, whether it's with a customer, whether it's with a brand, is significant. So I think it makes sense. That's where the money's gone. It's about how do we expand and get returns fast. It's in that mid space. However, it exacerbates the challenge of where is the future coming from. The number of grad schemes is still low compared to where it was. It's definitely increased a little bit. There's definitely a bit more introspection from organizations on where's our future talent going to come from, particularly as the tap's been turned off for 2 years from overseas. That tap's coming back on. But, there's definitely a little upshift in grad programs, but nowhere near enough to fill the talent gap. And the senior end, I find super interesting. Companies have been very reticent to recruit. People in senior roles have been reticent to change. 3 reasons for that. One is the lack of international mobility. So international gigs have not been there to be taken. That's decreased liquidity. Senior leaders have been actually earning bonuses for the first time in a while, so they've hung on and have taken bonus for 1 year, 2 years. I don't think they'll hang on for a third year. We're now into that iteration, so that will increase openness to move. And then finally, is companies just feeling more resilient from a corporate point of view. So corporate resilience is an interesting concept. I've not heard much about it in the press, but I do believe in it. So companies have learned to live with COVID. They've learned to live with a global war, with the consequent supply chain issues and inflation. And are now just learning to live with uncertainty. So because they feel good about the fact that they're coping, are being able to make more decisions on strategically, we can do the stuff that we perhaps have hung off doing for a while. So whether that's M&A, whether that's investing in new brands or products to take to market, new channels, whatever it is you're going to do to try and grow your business. So that growth will require leadership. So I think we're going to see a bit more going on at the senior end. And we are seeing that. The green shoots are there. We've got 3 or 4 senior assignments on with either just starting or about to start. And that's great news for senior leaders who have hung on for a bit longer. But I still think we're going to see ongoing demand for national account managers, category managers, and senior brand managers and marketing managers. Do we think that consistency of demand in the mid-space has had a big impact on salaries?
Oh, we certainly saw some movement in salaries last year. So what we saw as a result of a candidate short market was the opportunity, if people wanted to take it, to move for big increases in salary or to use that to leverage an increase from their current employer. Now, as a result, what we saw from that was some people actually end up making a fairly short-sighted decision, and maybe ending up either stuck in a role or pricing themselves out of the market. So really runs completely counter to the way that we tend to work with candidates, which is to look at everything from a career perspective. And particularly when you're in that early to mid-career stage, it's really about accruing as much experience and breadth as you can to set yourself up to get into those bigger senior roles down the line, and that's where you can really unlock the big money. Unfortunately, those unique conditions last year meant some people could jump at those big sums before they were maybe ready to, and as a result end up stuck. I think we'll start to see that really cool now. So we're seeing gradually number of applicants per role increasing. It's not as much of a candidate short market, still shorter than it was, but there's more availability there for businesses to choose from. And so that means that there's less power in the hands of candidates now. So they can't necessarily go around asking for those big increases. And hopefully that will encourage people to start thinking again more strategically about their career, and also making sure, as we'll come on to, that they're in the best possible position to make those moves.
Yeah. Yeah, salary's been really interesting. I think the press, the mainstream media have kind of hyped this up a little bit. And I get it. The inflation drives some interesting thinking. But in reality, while salaries might have increased a little bit, I think we've not seen the massive shifts up universally that you might think has been the case. We're about to produce our 2023 salary guide. It's probably the only guide in the marketplace that is deadly accurate to the specific roles within FMCG and consumer, as opposed to a generic look at sales or marketing. So they are pretty interesting. And the midpoint, for example, in those middle range roles is probably got, well, obviously consistently got about $5,000. That's about it. So it's a bit, but it's not the great hikes. Now, there are always examples, and people will point them out, particularly when they talk to us about their friend or colleague who's got $20,000 or $25,000 to make a move, and they can get that, and you could get that, and you can probably still get that, but it's catastrophic to do it. So we would strongly advise, if a company's throwing a lot of money at you, if you are seriously underpaid, then fair enough. But if you're in the right market range, as per our salary guides, and the move you're going to make is going to take you out of market range, then don't do it, because you're going to make yourself uncompetitive internally and externally for quite some time to come. And therefore, your career will actually slow down. So invest in yourself. Always make sure your salary is in the right space, but not too high or too low. If in doubt, ask us and we'll give you some real specific guidance on that. So the opportunity to earn a massive big increase is not worth your while. Don't do it. Make sure you're getting just the right increase if it's an increase in responsibility or role type, but otherwise, as long as you're in the right banding, that's all you need to know. Now, if we then look at getting ready for this year then and move on to 2023, will be for many a year of transition. We are talking about a consistency of demand, but perhaps more of an equilibrium of supply and demand from a talent point of view, but still probably an excess of demand in some of those hot roles in the mid space. What do candidates have to think about and get in terms of getting themselves in the right frame of mind for making the most out of a year of transition, the year to make a move?
I think, as always, it starts with self-awareness. So before you think about making a move, it's figuring out, well, what does a great career move actually look like for you? So as we've touched on a couple of times, candidates quite often get short-sighted and look at, well, what's the next job title? What's the next salary I should be going for? And yet those days of going linearly up the career path within the space that you work in are kind of behind us now. So what the way you should be looking at your career is really as a journey. So figure out, where do you eventually want to get to? Is it into senior leadership roles? Is it being a subject matter expert within the area that you're passionate about? And then working backwards from there and looking at maybe some of the examples of leaders that we've interviewed on the Sales and Marketing Director Incubator. What are the experiences that I need to accrue in order to make that happen? What's the breadth I need to get? What are the areas I need to go into that I haven't yet explored? And from there, you can start thinking about, well, what does my next move need to look like then? And the way we encourage candidates to look at career moves is first from the perspective of you join an organization first. So the role is the role, but can you find businesses who are on a journey that excites you, that you understand, and that you can really see yourself being part of and buying into? Then it's about looking at, well, who are the leaders in that business and how are they bringing that to life, and what's the quality of leadership like? And then finally, the last piece of the jigsaw really is, well, what's the role? How does the role ladder up into that journey? Can you see yourself doing that role and then going on to do 1, 2, maybe even 3 more with that business? So I think thinking through that and getting a clear perspective on what sort of organizations and roles are going to be right for you in the context of broader career is really the first step before we start thinking about actually putting the wheels in motion on making that move.
Absolutely. And contrast that versus the path you're on currently. So, there's if you start with the longer term, bigger picture in mind, then you start to create many more pathways than simply what's in front of my face. So that ability to forward project and think about not the end goal, but perhaps a future goal, it is more. There are more options than you think. And our sales and marketing director incubator, all recorded, all on this podcast, your future in sales and marketing, can bring that to life. So we've got people on there who run small companies, who run large companies, who run functions, who sit in international roles, who sit on boards. So their pathway to those roles is, every single one of them is different. They work in different sectors, categories. And therefore, when you talk to them about what they want to do next, rather than everyone saying, I want to be the CEO of X, Y, Z, they've all got different answers too, because they are in turn thinking about the longer term where they want to get to, working in different types of organizations, or the move from the exec to ELT to a board role, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of things you can do. So when you start to think about all the different end goals and what they look like, then you can start to work back on the pathways. And the pathways within your own organization are probably much more interesting, and there are more options than you realize. So if you haven't got that promotion or title or salary, don't jump. Come and talk to us, and we'll happily kind of try and bring that to life in terms of a journey for you. But we often as not, we might push you back and say, hey, there's more you can do in your current business before you move externally. But be clear on those longer term goals first of all. And to your point, I think you've phrased it really well, Andrew. It's the journey a business is on that creates experience as much as the roles, because you can do the same role with a business that is on a very different journey from another business, and the role is completely different. That could be a business that is going super fast under private equity for sale, or it could be in a privately owned business who's been building brands for 200 years, or it could be for a US listed business with short-term reporting, or it could be on a Japanese listed business, which is more about, again, longer term stability. So, and everybody is different and every business is different. So there's so many different things you can do. Yeah, it's we love getting into this topic, guys. And if this conversation interests you, then I just advise you to jump into the back episodes of Your Future in Sales and Marketing. So many interesting leaders on there from different types of organizations who bring us to life more effectively than Andrew and I can. So do that. Now, what about in a practical sense? If you've decided, actually, the journey my business is on and the future of the journey isn't for me, I want to have a different experience next, and I'm ready to make the move from my organization to another this year, and I'm clear on what the organizations I'm going to look at, what the pathways are going to be. In practical terms, what can someone do to get ready for that?
I think there's a few things. So first and foremost, getting your resume in order sounds really basic, but before you start going out there and trying to sell yourself, you've got to make sure you're clear on what your value proposition is. So a great way to do that is to go back over your resume and get some advice on that. So a separate point I'll come on to is partnering with a specialist recruiter, but that's a role that we can play. So we kind of know what good looks like in that space. Even if it's not engaging with us personally, on the AXL website, you can find a great guide to pulling together an executive resume and lots of other resources out there as well. So make sure your resume is in order and that you're really clear on what your value proposition is. What do you have to offer in terms of skills and experience and competencies so that you're really clear on that. So when the opportunity comes to discuss it, you're more than ready.
Yeah. Particularly if you've got the goal in mind, and you're clear on the sort of organizations you want to work with, then we always talk about it in terms of your career trajectory. So what's your narrative? Once you have the resume there, well, how do you bring that to life? The resume is simply to get you in front of somebody because it makes sense to that individual. But then you've got to bring that to life. And often the first question you get asked in any interview is, summarize your resume. So can you tell a story around your resume that's authentic? Can you bring it to life in a way that weaves in your life and creates social capital between you and the interviewer? So we do a whole there's a whole pod on that, guys, to jump back on into and listen to in terms of getting yourself interview fit with Greg Madden and myself. But we've also got a guide as well. So AXR, Recruitment and Search, we produce a guide on getting interview fit. There's loads of great content in there and get ready for that. So I think resume, interview fit, LinkedIn profile as well. Australia is the most mature market for LinkedIn in the world.
Fascinating.
There's no other country uses LinkedIn more effectively and more thoroughly and more frequently than we do in Australia.
Which just shows you the importance of using it. And I think network in general is a huge consideration because quite often candidates go to, I'm just going to find roles and apply for them. Well, that is one way of getting a role, and it's certainly possible. But if you really want to stand out and find opportunities that are going to be the best ones for you and put yourself in the best position of getting them, often those opportunities will come through kind of igniting your existing network. And LinkedIn is a great way to go about doing that.
Yeah. We also have a guide for LinkedIn as well. So there's an AXR guide on activating your LinkedIn profile. So it's not just having a pretty profile with the right picture and content. That's step one. Step two is ensuring you've got the right audience in terms of who you connect with, how to connect with them, and how to leverage content in order to engage with that audience the right way. And that's your brand proposition. It's simple marketing, but like most of the sales and marketing community, we don't market ourselves well enough. So the guide that we produce is a step-by-step, simple way to do that. Invest a bit of time every day, and your profile will go through the roof. So certainly some things you can do just to get yourself ready. So craft your narrative, using your resume and being able to bring that to life. Think about how you want to come across and build in an interview. We'll have the guide for that, and creating your brand and bringing your brand to life through LinkedIn, which is a very powerful tool here in Australia. So lots you can be getting into, guys. And there are other recruiters out there. Choose them carefully, choose them wisely. Don't spread yourself too thin. Build up relationships with people you rate and you respect and feel can add value for you. And you can't go too far wrong. So, in concluding, any final pearls of wisdom for 2023? What's the market going to be like when we look back in this time next year, Andrew, and the year that was? What do we think 2023 is going to give to us?
I think it's going to be another year of opportunity. So I think in terms of pearls of wisdom, if you can call them that, I'd say it's your career. Your career has the potential to allow you to experience different businesses, people, functions, geographies. If you're interested, it can take you on the most amazing journey, but you've got to drive it. Those opportunities aren't necessarily going to fall in your lap. So if you want your career to take you places, I think this year is going to be a great opportunity to do that for a lot of people. I think you've got to take control of it. Get really clear on where you want to go. Get clear on what the next step looks like for you. Get yourself in the best position to do it. And of course, and work with a specialist recruiter if you can. We touched on network. Don't just use your network. Put our network to work for you. And when it comes to getting yourself ready for that next position, that next opportunity, effectively work with a coach. Work with someone who knows this area really well, and let us partner with you and work on your behalf. So, a year of opportunity. It's there for the taking. So I'd encourage people to get clear on what they want and to go for it.
Fantastic summary, Andrew. Thanks for that. Really enjoyed the conversation. Guys, those who stayed with us to the very end, well done. Hopefully that was really informative and some good points within that. Now, looking forward to this year in our podcast, we've got about 25 guests lined up and more knocking the door, which is lovely to see. as we bring our network to life for you. As Andrew said, it's not just your own network. Let us bring our extensive network to life for you. We've got guests from the world of sales and marketing. Also, we're bringing the HR perspective this year. We're going to do more in category. We're going to step outside of the world of FMCG and bring some other sectors into the fold as well, which should be super, super interesting. We've got more CEOs who want to talk about their business and that business journey. So lots to hear about again this year in your future in sales and marketing. If you haven't got our 2023 salary guide, don't worry, it's not out yet, but it will be out really soon. So watch out for that. And if you pick up this episode later in the year, then just contact us and we will get you a copy. Contact us anytime for a career conversation. We love to talk and help you get the most out of your career to make a great career decision. That's our entire purpose. Thanks again, Andrew. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Mike.
It's been your future in sales and marketing. Have a great year. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast from AXR Recruitment and Search. We're passionate about helping you get the most out of your sales and marketing career. Keep listening as we bring you more inspiring journeys and advice from Australia's sales and marketing leaders. You just can't get this career insight anywhere else. My name is Mike Dickson. See you next time on Your Future in Sales and Marketing.